Hello, welcome to Great American Movie Review. Joining me again and with Hannah
What's up?
for another mini review for David Fincher's latest film on Netflix, The Killer. The Killer follows a meticulous hitman after a job goes wrong. It's a pretty simple premise, honestly. The killer here, the main character that you're following, is played by Michael Fassbender in his first role since 2019. I've always liked Michael Fassbender, and he was all over the 2010s, so it's been kind of weird not seeing him in anything since Dark Phoenix of all things. But it's he's a welcome screen presence here, leading this movie. And yeah, like I said, it's a very simple movie. The tagline for it is execution is everything. And I really think that applies to the philosophy behind the filmmaking here. But this was one that I really enjoyed watching for sure. We actually we watched it twice. The
hmm
first time I was still needing to like go back and just really follow along because the movie doesn't like spell out what's happening. Like I said, it's a simple plot, but it's not in your face about the details.
It's so good.
So yeah, Hannah, what do you think of it generally?
Yeah, oh my gosh. You and I both talked about how at the beginning of the film, he's narrating, but we would both watch this if it were completely silent
Absolutely.
because it is so captivating. Like it is like you said, the execution is everything, and that is really done in the film process itself. Like it is
Right.
an excellent movie. It's a shame that it's not in theaters.
Yes, it is definitely one of those that I wish I could see on a big screen, but it being at home means I could watch it twice with ease, I guess. So there's advantages there, but yeah, I do wish I was able to see this on a big screen
Oh, and hear it.
and hear it. The sound is great.
Chef's
Um,
kiss.
Not a surprise. This is from director David Fincher, who is most known for The Social Network, Fight Club, Seven, just so many films. And he is known as just like this perfectionist. He'll do take after take after take to get the shot and the performances that he wants exactly the way he wants it. And this movie feels really self referential and even self deprecating in some ways to his own obsessive perfectionist style. And I think that kind of like Wes Anderson's film earlier this year, Asteroid City, it's almost like
So
just
good.
taking those stylistic aspects and making the whole movie really feeding into that. And thematically, too, I love that we have people like Fincher because so many directors don't really want to make modern movies. And I think that it's important that we get filmmakers like Fincher to make something that is completely modern set in our world. Because as stylish as this movie is in its execution, it's not like a John Wick where it's almost a fantasy reality.
hmm
It very much feels like intentionally set in our world with the way it incorporates product placement and branding and stuff within the movie. Kind of lends this weird kind of almost brings a stark reality to this underbelly of society that is focused on with this hitman character.
Yeah, I don't know if you caught me saying it to you, because we were both pretty enthralled in the movie. But at one point, I was like, "This is like John Wick, but this might actually be happening." And it's just so good. Now, that actually makes me curious about. I don't know if you know this or if you looked this up, um, because I certainly didn't. But I wonder how the stunts were done, just because when there's like a couple of very specific fighting sequences that,
Specifically one major fight scene in the movie.
yeah,
It's not an action movie.
it's not an action movie, but it's done with, I'm gonna use the word again, execution that is so specific, and it's so well done. I'm like with John Wick, you know, stuntmen directed the movie.
Yeah.
Like they knew what they were doing. That's why it's an amazing action film. Well, that's not the only reason. But with this movie, the fighting sequences which are few and far between, but when they are there, are so good. It made me wonder about who the stuntmen were and like where that came from.
Well, actually, the main person and opposite of the killer in the fight scene that we're talking about, he is a stuntman. His name's
Well,
Bala Baker.
okay.
So it was a very smart casting decision because
Hmm.
the other characters in this movie, they're kind of sprinkled in. It really is just all about Michael Fassbender's
Hmm.
killer character, unnamed. And you're just in his head the whole time. I'm kind of torn about the internal monologue personally, because on one hand, I get it, and also it kind of links it to its graphic novel roots of kind of
Hmm.
how the page would translate to screen with hearing that monologue in his head. But at the same time, I almost would be more compelled by the film just if it were just playing out silently, with just occasional dialogue whenever he's actually talking to somebody. And because the way that the Fincher captures the images and the sequencing here is so meticulous
Hmm.
that I was just wrapped up in it immediately.
Yeah, and the killer character, like all the characters in this movie, you only get three names.
Yeah.
Well, hold on, let me one, two, four. You get four names. Everyone else is like the killer or well, I'm not going to spoil the other characters for you, but
Yeah.
um even without words, all of their performances, the style of the film, it's just like we both said, I don't know, I could watch it on mute
Yeah.
like the whole time and
Yeah.
just still be as captivated.
Yeah, but the use of sound in the movie is great. There's
So good.
a specific choice to use a singular artist's discography,
Hmm.
which it's an odd choice, but I think it works for what they're going for in the movie. But once again, that attention to detail with how the sound is used and the way the music kind of comes in and out of the sequencing from changing perspectives,
Hmm.
as well as just the score by frequent collaborators with Fincher of Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. Their score is just sometimes it almost sounds like it's underwater at times, like, and
Hmm.
you get these kind of pulsating things, almost like a heartbeat going through it. It's all just kind of builds to this kind of heart pounding tension kind of thriller that you're following. This almost wordless movie, I'm not saying that there are definitely conversations that happen.
Hmm.
A particularly good one with Tilda Swinton in there.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, and as well as Charles Parnell shows up here as well. He's been showing up in a lot of things lately, but he's a welcome presence every time he does.
Okay, I don't know if you thought about this, but I remember when like Baby Driver came out and everyone was like, this is so good and there's not that much conversation.
Mm.
It kind of gave me like, I could have no conversation in this
I
movie.
feel more than Baby Driver, this movie reflects stuff like Les Samurai, which is a French film,
Well,
and
I
other
don't know
yeah,
that
other European films of that nature,
one.
as well as like in terms of contemporary American films. I would call this most similarly to Drive, which Baby Driver and Drive are both based loosely like inspired by The Driver, another
Mm-hmm.
European inspired kind of film.
Mm.
So
Yeah, I thought of Drive also.
yeah.
I just remember that being like oh my gosh, they did this thing and it was so good. And I'm like, yeah, imagine if all of you were watching this movie in theaters.
Right.
I hope it gets more recognition and like people get to view it more. Streaming has made things really weird. That's a totally different conversation. All I'm saying is this movie is so freaking good. And as somebody who doesn't like spooky ooky things, this is not that at all. It's not like a scary movie. You know, I know the title The Killer, it might be like, what? But it's not like that at all. It's not even like a psychological thriller.
No.
It's just very meticulous, intense. This is what's happening.
Even darkly funny,
Mhm.
in both what he says in the monologue, which is where I really like the monologue, is because some of those lines in there are really great. And once again, put it as a thoroughly modern film
Mhm.
in terms of like the things he says, some of the choice words and references that he makes.
Mhm. I feel like it's hard to talk about this movie without spoilers because I'm so excited about the details of this movie, which is what David Fincher is so good at
Yeah.
doing, are the details of things. And I mean, not that he's not good at other stuff, but this movie is so specific about every detail. And I'm thinking as somebody who I've done some acting here and there, right? Okay, I'm not like crazy good. But I'm just thinking about an actor having to do these intense scenes over and over and over and over again until they're perfect. And I'm like, man, what a grueling job. But the product looks so amazing.
Mm.
It's so amazing. I'm like, Michael Fassbender is
Yeah.
fantastic.
It's definitely a movie where I could describe to you every plot point in it and you will not have gotten the story because the story is not
Hmm.
the plot here. The story is Michael Fassbender's character, what he's thinking, what he's doing. And sometimes, once again, the kind of really darkly funny aspect of it is the contrast between what he's thinking and what he's doing and how
Hmm.
they don't always line up. But it doesn't address that because he's not, his monologue is very singular. It is a very specific type of thinking thought process, but it's not like actively addressing things in the same way that you might think it would. So yeah, definitely, if you're at all curious about this, if you like David Fincher, for sure, definitely check this film out. It's worth your time. It's only 2 hours, which, like that's an average film length, but for, a lot of modern movies have been like going over 2.5 hours. So it feels like a quick watch. It's so relentlessly
Hmm.
paced and just moves along nicely. But yeah, that's my general final thoughts on it. Anything else from you?
Yeah, so my final thoughts are honestly pretty similar. Like, this movie is fantastic. Again, tagline execution is everything. That is not just for plot, that is in the style of this film. David Fincher is incredible at these details. I could watch it for longer than 2 hours. I even said after we watched it the second time, I caught a, a couple of things from the first time we watched it that in the second time it was like, oh my gosh, that was planned. That wasn't coincidence. And it's just so good. It's
Mm,
such a good watch. And this is a great standalone film. Um, I could see others like this
yeah, if they
done.
wanted to adapt the other volumes of the graphic novel, I'd be into it for sure.
I would definitely be into it. uh, Yeah, so great film, great watch. You might want to watch it twice,
Yeah, it's good.
6 times. Once, twice, 3 times a lady. But yeah.
Yeah, it's good. But yeah, that'll do it for this mini review for The Killer. Thank you for joining us. We're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so if you want to check us out in audio form, you can find us there. Also, like, subscribe, leave a comment if you want to talk about the movie. We'll respond to it as long as we feel like it's contributing to a conversation. And yeah,
Thanks for having me.
yeah, of course. We'll see you at the movies.